The rain had turned to sleet by the time Marcus Ghost Callahan rolled his Harley down Franklin Street at 11:43 p.m. The city had emptied hours ago, storefronts dark, sidewalks slick with ice, streetlights casting yellow halos through the freezing mist. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was riding away from something he couldn't name, toward nowhere in particular. The engine rumbled beneath him like a heartbeat, steady and familiar, the only constant in a life that had taught him not to trust constants. He'd been riding for 3 hours. No destination, no plan, just the road, the cold, and the ghost of a promise he'd made 20 years ago to a friend who never came home from Afghanistan. "If I don't make it back, Ghost, you keep living for both of us. You hear me? You keep showing up." Marcus had kept that promise. Barely. Some days it felt like all he did was show up. To funerals, to hospital rooms, to the kind of silence that swallowed men whole. But he kept his word. He always kept his word. That's when he saw her. A woman, maybe 23, collapsed against a shuttered laundromat. Her coat was too thin for the weather, a denim jacket with a ripped sleeve, no scarf, no gloves. Her belly was round, unmistakably pregnant. Her lips were blue. Her hair was wet, plastered against her face. Her hand rested protectively over her stomach, fingers curled, as if shielding something precious even in unconsciousness. Marcus stopped. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story, but something in the way her hand rested protectively over her stomach, even unconscious, made him kill the engine, drop the kickstand, and kneel beside her in the freezing rain. The sleet stung his face. His knees hit the cold pavement. Up close, he could see her lips moving slightly, as if she were whispering something in a dream. He checked for a pulse. Faint, irregular. Her skin was ice. "Hey," he said softly, shaking her shoulder. "Can you hear me?" No response. Marcus pulled off his leather jacket, the one with the Iron Brotherhood patch stitched across the back, the one that had kept him warm through 1,000 miles of highway nights, and wrapped it around her. He dialed 911 with numb fingers. While he waited, he noticed the worn hospital bracelet on her wrist. No name, just a reference number that had been scratched out with what looked like a pen. Beside it, her skin was bruised, faint yellowing marks that looked weeks old. The ambulance arrived 12 minutes later. The paramedics were efficient, professional. They lifted her onto the gurney without making eye contact with Marcus, their movements practiced and detached. "You know her?" one asked, clipboard already in hand. "No." "Then we'll take it from here." Marcus nodded, but as they loaded her into the rig, something stopped him from walking away. Maybe it was the way she'd clutched her belly. Maybe it was the look in the paramedic's eyes. Like this woman was already a statistic, another nameless soul in a system that had stopped caring. Maybe it was the promise he'd made to Tommy all those years ago. Keep showing up. He climbed back on his bike and followed the ambulance to Mercy General Hospital. If you believe in second chances and the power of showing up when no one else will, leave a comment below. This story is just beginning. Marcus sat in the waiting room until 2:17 a.m. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow over rows of plastic chairs bolted to the floor. A janitor mopped the same section of floor 3 times, headphones in, eyes down. Nobody came to ask about the woman. Nobody claimed her. The reception desk had changed shifts twice. Each time, Marcus gave the same answer: "Still waiting." The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee. An elderly man slept in the corner, snoring softly. A young couple argued in whispers near the vending machines. A television mounted on the wall played the news on mute, headlines scrolling past about budget cuts, hospital closures, winter storms. Marcus didn't move. He sat with his elbows on his knees, hands clasped, staring at the double doors that led to the emergency wing. His leather vest was still damp from the rain. His boots left wet prints on the linoleum. Finally, at 2:17 a.m., a nurse emerged, mid-50s, tired eyes, scrubs covered in coffee stains, and what looked like dried blood. Her name tag read, Linda. She scanned the waiting room, then walked directly to Marcus. "You the one who brought her in?" "Yeah." She studied him for a moment. The leather vest, the road dust, the iron brotherhood patch on his shoulder, the tattoos that crawled up his forearms, names, dates, symbols of loss. She'd seen his type before, but something in his eyes made her pause. "She's stable," Linda said, lowering her voice. "Hypothermia, dehydration, malnutrition. She's severely anemic, blood pressure's low, and she's 7 months pregnant." Marcus exhaled slowly. "She gonna be okay? Physically? Maybe. But she's got no ID, no insurance, no emergency contact, no address." Linda's jaw tightened. "Hospital policy says we stabilize her, then transfer her to the county shelter in the morning. They've got a bed available at the women's facility on 8th Street. "A shelter? She's 7 months pregnant." "I know." The nurse's voice dropped even lower. "But we're not a charity ward. We've got 200 beds and 400 patients. That's the policy. We stabilize, we refer, we move on." Marcus stood slowly. He was 6'1", broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made people step aside without thinking. But his voice stayed calm. "Can I see her?" "Family only." "Then pretend I'm family." Linda hesitated. She looked at the clock. She looked at Marcus. Then she glanced back at the double doors. "Room 14. 5 minutes. If anyone asks, you're her brother." Marcus nodded. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet." He walked down the corridor, his boots echoing on tile. The hallway was long, sterile, lined with closed doors and darkened rooms. Room 14 was at the end, dim, quiet, the only light coming from a monitor that beeped softly beside the bed. The woman lay beneath a thin blanket, an IV in her arm, an oxygen tube beneath her nose. Her face was pale, hollow, cheekbones sharp beneath bruised skin, but her hands still rested on her stomach. Marcus pulled a chair beside the bed and sat. He didn't touch her. He didn't speak. He just sat there, hands on his knees, listening to the steady beep of the monitor. After a minute, he leaned forward. "Hey," he said quietly. "I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm Marcus. I found you on Franklin Street. You're safe now. I don't know your name, I don't know what happened, but I'm not leaving until I know you're okay." Her eyelids fluttered. For a moment, he thought she might wake. Her lips moved just barely, forming a word he couldn't hear. But then she stilled again, her breathing slow and even. Marcus stayed until Linda appeared in the doorway. "Time's up," she said softly. Marcus stood. "What happens to her in the morning?" "Social services comes at 8. They'll do an intake interview, then transport her to the shelter. And if she doesn't want to go..." Linda's expression hardened. "Then she signs herself out and ends up back on the street. That's how it works." Marcus walked past her without another word. But he didn't leave the hospital. He slept in the parking lot on his bike, engine off, jacket zipped tight against the cold, arms crossed over his chest. The sleet had stopped. The sky was black and starless. Every hour, he woke up and looked at the third-floor window, room 14, just to make sure the light was still on. At 6:42 a.m., his phone buzzed. It was a text from his buddy, Rook. "Heard you pulled someone off the street last night. You good?" Marcus typed back, "Need a favor. Call the crew." 3 dots appeared. Then, "How many?" Marcus looked up at the hospital. Room 14, 3rd floor. The light was still on. All of them. By 9 a.m., 17 bikers were parked outside Mercy General. They came from 3 counties. Some were veterans, men and women who'd served in Iraq, Afghanistan, Desert Storm. Some were mechanics with grease-stained hands and decades of experience keeping engines alive. One was a paramedic who'd seen too many bodies on highway shoulders. Another ran a trucking company and knew every back road from here to the Canadian border. They wore patches from different chapters, but they all answered to the same code: show up when it matters. Protect those who can't protect themselves. Leave no one behind. Marcus stood in the center of the lot, arms crossed, breath visible in the cold morning air. The sun was rising, pale and weak, casting long shadows across the asphalt. The bikers formed a loose circle around him, leather vests, worn jeans, weathered faces. Some leaned against their bikes, others stood with hands in pockets. All of them were silent, waiting. "Thanks for coming," Marcus said. Rook stepped forward. 6'4", shaved head, voice like gravel, a scar that ran from his left eyebrow to his jawline. He'd been Marcus's sergeant in Afghanistan. He'd pulled Marcus out of a burning Humvee in Kandahar. He'd carried him 2 miles under fire. They didn't talk about it, but they both remembered. "What's the play?" Rook asked. "Woman inside, pregnant, homeless. Hospital's gonna dump her at a county shelter this morning. So, what do you need?" Marcus looked around the circle. "A place for her to stay, food, clothes, medical care, and a way to make sure nobody forgets she exists." Rook nodded slowly. "You don't even know her." "No." "Then why?" Marcus looked up at the hospital again. 3rd floor, room 14. "Because nobody else is asking." Silence. The wind picked up, rattling a chain-link fence nearby. A car honked in the distance. Somewhere, a siren wailed. Then a woman's voice cut through the cold. "I've got a guest room." Everyone turned. It was Danny, 5'2", former army nurse, ran a cafe downtown called Danny's Place. She walked through the crowd like she owned it, hands shoved in the pockets of a canvas jacket, grey hair pulled back in a ponytail. She'd served 2 tours as a combat medic. She'd seen things that would break most people. She didn't break. "She can stay with me," Danny said. "I've got space, I've got time, and I've got a hell of a lot more patience than you idiots." A few bikers grinned. "What about medical?" Marcus asked. A man raised his hand, thin, wire-rimmed glasses, late 60s, patch that read Doc. His real name was Richard Patel. He'd been an OB-GYN for 30 years before retiring. He still kept his license active. He still made house calls when people couldn't afford the hospital. "I'm an OB-GYN, Doc said. "Retired. I can check on her, monitor the pregnancy, make sure she and the baby stay healthy." "Food?" "I'll cover groceries," said a guy named Cole. He owned a diner on Route 9. Cole's Corner, open 24 hours, known for the best biscuits and gravy in 3 counties. He was 52, built like a bear, with a voice that could fill a room. "I'll bring meals, fresh stuff, whatever she needs." "Legal?" A woman in a business jacket stepped forward. Her name was Karen Moss. She was a social worker with the county. She'd been doing this work for 15 years. She knew every loophole, every form, every bureaucrat who could help or hinder. She looked tired, but she didn't look beaten. "I'll file the paperwork," Karen said. "Emergency housing assistance, Medicaid, WIC benefits, food stamps, whatever she qualifies for. It'll take time, but I'll get it done." Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. He looked around the circle, 17 strangers who'd dropped everything to show up for someone they'd never met. "All right, let's do this." They walked into the hospital together. 17 bikers, 1 nurse, 1 doctor, 1 social worker. The receptionist looked up, eyes wide, hand frozen over the keyboard. "We're here for the woman in room 14, Marcus said. "Are you family?" Marcus leaned on the counter. His voice was calm. "Yeah, we are." Her name was Ellie. She told them 3 hours later, after she woke up in Danny's guest room, with no idea how she got there. The room was small but clean. White walls, a double bed with a handmade quilt, a window that looked out over a quiet street lined with oak trees. Sunlight filtered through the curtains. The air smelled like coffee and cinnamon rolls. Ellie opened her eyes slowly. Her head ached. Her throat was dry. Her hand moved instinctively to her belly, and she felt the familiar weight, the slight movement beneath her palm. The baby was still there, still alive. She sat up slowly, heart racing. Where was she? The last thing she remembered was collapsing on the sidewalk, the cold seeping into her bones, the desperate hope that someone, anyone, would stop. The door opened. Danny stepped in, carrying a tray with tea, toast and scrambled eggs. "You're awake," Danny said gently. "How do you feel?" Ellie stared at her, confused. "Where am I?" "Safe. You're in my house. You collapsed 2 nights ago on Franklin Street. A man named Marcus found you. He brought you to the hospital. Then we brought you here. Why? Because you needed help. Ellie's eyes filled with tears. I don't have money. Didn't ask for any. Marcus appeared in the doorway. Leather vest, weathered face, eyes that had seen too much. He didn't step inside. He just stood there, watching. Who are you? Ellie asked, voice shaking. Marcus, I'm the one who found you. Why did you help me? Because you needed it. Ellie looked down at her belly, her voice cracked. I don't even know if I can keep her. Her? Danny asked gently, setting the tray on the nightstand. Ellie nodded, tears streaming down her face. I was staying with my boyfriend. His name is Kyle. We were together for 2 years. When I told him I was pregnant, he said it wasn't his. He said I was lying. He kicked me out 3 weeks ago. I've been sleeping in bus shelters, under bridges, anywhere I could find. I was trying to get to my sister in Ohio, but I ran out of money in this city. I don't have a phone. I don't have ID. I don't have anything. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. You got a number for your sister? She won't answer. She told me not to call again. She said I made my choices and now I have to live with them. Silence settled over the room like snow. Then Danny spoke, her voice steady. You don't need her, you've got us. Ellie looked up confused. I don't understand, you don't even know me. We do now, Danny said, and we're gonna help you. Get you on your feet, make sure you and your baby are safe. No strings, no judgment, no conditions. Ellie's face crumpled. She covered her mouth with both hands, shoulders shaking. Why would you do this? Marcus stepped into the room. He sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to crowd her. Because a long time ago, someone helped me when I had nothing, and I never got to say thank you, so now I help other people. That's how it works. Ellie looked at him through tears. I don't deserve this. That's not how this works either, Marcus said. You don't have to deserve help, you just have to accept it. Commenting from Detroit, San Antonio, Phoenix. Drop your city below. Let's see how far this story reaches. Over the next 2 weeks, 17 strangers became a family. Doc examined Ellie every 3 days. He brought a portable ultrasound machine to Danny's house, set it up on the kitchen table, and checked the baby's heartbeat, growth, and position. The baby was healthy. Small, but growing steadily. Ellie watched the monitor each time, tears streaming down her face, hand pressed to her mouth. She's strong, Doc said one afternoon, wiping gel from Ellie's belly. Heart rate is good. Movement is good. You're doing everything right. I'm not doing anything, Ellie whispered. You're surviving, Doc said. That's more than most people could do. Cole brought groceries every Monday and Thursday, fresh vegetables, lean protein, prenatal vitamins, whole grain bread, fruit. He didn't knock. He just left the bags on the porch with a handwritten note, eat, rest. We've got you. Karen filed paperwork for emergency housing assistance, Medicaid, WIC benefits, food stamps. She spent hours on the phone with caseworkers, navigating bureaucratic red tape, pushing through delays. It would take weeks, maybe months, but she didn't stop. I got you approved for temporary Medicaid, Karen said one afternoon, handing Ellie a stack of papers. It'll cover prenatal care and delivery. I'm still working on housing. The wait list is long, but I'm pushing. Ellie stared at the papers, overwhelmed. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet, Karen said. Just promise me you'll keep showing up, to appointments, to meetings, to your own life. Ellie nodded, tears welling. I promise. Danny gave Ellie the guest room indefinitely. She also gave her something harder to accept, patience. She didn't push, she didn't pry. She just made breakfast every morning, left the door open, and waited for Ellie to talk when she was ready. One morning, over coffee, Ellie finally spoke. Why are you doing this? She asked. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Danny looked out the window at the oak trees swaying in the breeze. I was you once, 23, pregnant, boyfriend left. Family didn't want me. I ended up at a shelter in Detroit. A woman there, her name was Rose. She let me stay with her. She didn't ask questions, she didn't judge, she just helped. And when I asked her why, she said the same thing I'm telling you now, because someone helped me once and I'm paying it forward. What happened to Rose? She died 5 years ago. Cancer. I never got to repay her, so now I help other people. That's how we keep her alive. Ellie wiped her eyes. I'll pay you back someday. I don't want you to pay me back, Danny said. I want you to help someone else when you can. That's how this works. Marcus came by every few days. Sometimes he brought baby clothes from a donation center. Tiny onesies, blankets, socks no bigger than his thumb. Sometimes he just sat on the porch and talked. You ever think about what you're gonna name her? He asked one evening, watching the sun set over the neighborhood. Ellie smiled faintly. Hope. I'm gonna name her Hope. Marcus nodded. Good name. Strong name. What about you? Ellie asked. You got kids? No. Why not? Marcus looked out at the street, where a group of kids played basketball in a driveway. Lost someone a long time ago. Never felt right starting over after that. I'm sorry. Don't be. You're giving me a reason to remember why it mattered. Ellie didn't ask what he meant, but she understood. She understood that some people carry ghosts, and some people help others because they can't help themselves. Everything changed on a Tuesday. Ellie was 8 months pregnant. She was living with Danny. She had medical care. She had food. She had hope. Then her ex-boyfriend showed up. His name was Kyle Brennan. He was 26, unemployed, and high on something that made his pupils the size of pinpoints. He'd been looking for Ellie for weeks. He'd called shelters, emergency rooms, police stations. Finally, someone at a clinic mentioned seeing a pregnant woman with a group of bikers. That was enough. He found Danny's address through a friend who knew a friend. He showed up at 11 p.m., pounding on the door with both fists, shouting loud enough to wake the neighbors. I know she's in there, he shouted. Ellie, open the damn door. We need to talk. Danny woke up instantly. She grabbed her phone and called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. What's wrong? Ellie's ex is here. He's high. He's angry. I need help. On my way. Lock the doors. Don't open them. Marcus hung up and made 3 more calls. To Rook, to Cole, to a guy named Jake who lived 2 miles away. Then he fired up his Harley and rode. He arrived in 8 minutes. Rook was already there, standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed. Cole pulled up 30 seconds later. Jake arrived on foot, carrying a baseball bat. Kyle was still on the porch, fists hammering the door, shouting, Ellie, I swear to God, if you don't open this door, I'm breaking it down. Back up, Marcus said calmly, walking up the driveway. Kyle spun around, eyes wild. Who the hell are you? Someone who's asking you to leave. She's my girlfriend. That's my kid. She says different. Kyle's face twisted with rage. I don't give a shit what she says. She's lying. She's always lying. She's coming with me. Right now. Marcus stepped closer. His voice dropped. No, she's not. Kyle pulled a knife. The street went silent. Rook moved to Marcus's left. Cole moved to his right. Jake stayed behind, blocking the driveway. Put it down, Marcus said. Make me. Then Ellie's voice came from inside, muffled through the door. Kyle, stop. Everyone froze. She opened the door, 8 months pregnant, tears streaming, voice shaking. Just go, please. I don't want this. Kyle pointed the knife at her, hand trembling. You think you're better than me? You think these people actually care about you? They're using you. They're going to throw you out the second that baby's born. They won't, Ellie said, because they're not like you. Kyle lunged. Marcus caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted, and drove him into the porch railing. The knife clattered to the ground. Rook and Cole pinned Kyle's arms behind his back. Jake kicked the knife into the grass. Kyle screamed threats, graphic, violent, unhinged. Rook called the police. They arrived in 6 minutes. If this story is hitting you in the feels, hit that like button. We're almost to the moment that changed everything. The police took Kyle in on charges of assault, trespassing, and brandishing a weapon. Ellie gave a statement. So did Danny. So did Marcus, Rook, Cole, and Jake. The officer in charge, a woman named Sergeant Hayes, looked at the group of bikers standing in the yard and raised an eyebrow. You all live here? No, Marcus said, but we're not leaving until we know she's safe. Hayes studied him for a long moment. She'd been a cop for 18 years. She'd seen a lot of so-called heroes who turned out to be predators, but something about this group felt different. They weren't posturing. They weren't looking for credit. They were just there. Good, Hayes said finally. Stay as long as you need to. Kyle was held without bail pending a court date. A restraining order was filed, prohibiting him from coming within 500 feet of Ellie or Danny's residence. Hayes personally delivered the paperwork the next day. He's going away for a while, Hayes said. But when he gets out, you need to be ready. Men like him don't give up. We'll be ready, Marcus said. Ellie sat on the porch steps that night, shaking. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving only fear and exhaustion. Marcus sat beside her, silent. Thank you, she whispered. You don't have to thank me. I do. You could have walked away. You didn't. Marcus looked at her. Neither did you. I didn't have a choice. Yes, you did. You could have gone back to him. You could have believed him. But you didn't. That takes strength. Ellie wiped her eyes. I don't feel strong. You are, Marcus said. You're carrying a life. You're standing up to someone who hurt you. You're accepting help. That's strength. Ellie rested her head on his shoulder. Marcus didn't move. He just sat there, watching the street, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling into sleep. 3 weeks later, at 4:13 a.m., Ellie went into labor. She woke up with a sharp pain in her lower back, followed by a warm rush of fluid. She stumbled out of bed, gripping the doorframe, and called for Danny. Danny appeared instantly, already dressed, phone in hand. It's time. Ellie nodded, gasping. Danny called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. On my way. Danny drove. Marcus followed on his bike, weaving through empty streets, the engine roaring in the pre-dawn silence. Doc met them at the hospital, already in scrubs, ready. Labor lasted 9 hours. It was long, painful, and terrifying. Ellie had never been more scared in her life, but Danny held her hand. Doc monitored the baby's heartbeat. Marcus waited in the hallway, pacing, checking his phone every 30 seconds. At 1:47 p.m., Hope Marie Carter was born. 6 pounds, 4 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a cry that filled the room and echoed down the hallway. Ellie held her daughter and sobbed. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place she didn't know existed. Hope was perfect, tiny, fragile, alive. You did it, Danny whispered, tears streaming down her face. You did it, Ellie. Marcus stood in the doorway. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He just stood there, arms crossed, eyes red, and smiled. An hour later, the waiting room filled with bikers, 17 of them. They brought flowers, balloons, a handmade quilt that Cole's wife had stitched together, soft, warm, covered in tiny stars. When the nurse saw them, she smiled. Family? Yeah, Rook said. We are. They took turns visiting, 2 at a time, quiet, respectful, leaving cards and gifts on the bedside table. When it was Marcus's turn, he sat beside Ellie and looked down at Hope, who slept in her arms. She's beautiful, he said. She's everything, Ellie whispered. Marcus reached out and gently touched Hope's tiny hand. Her fingers curled around his thumb instinctively. He froze, staring at the impossibly small hand holding onto him. Thank you, Ellie said, for everything, for not walking away. Marcus looked up, eyes wet. Thank you for letting me help. 2 months after Hope was born, Ellie got a job at Cole's diner. She started slowly, just 3 shifts a week at first, testing the waters, seeing if she could balance motherhood and work. The diner sat on Route 9, a 2-lane highway that cut through the heart of the county. It was called Cole's Corner, and it had been there for 37 years. The sign out front was faded, the parking lot cracked, but the food was legendary. Truckers stopped there. Locals ate breakfast there every Sunday. High school kids gathered there after football games. Cole hired Ellie without asking questions. He just handed her an apron, navy blue with the diner's logo stitched on the front, and said, "Welcome to the team. Shift starts at 6. Coffee's always fresh. Customers tip better if you smile. Ellie smiled. It felt strange. She hadn't smiled much in the past year. She worked mornings, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., serving coffee, flipping eggs, wiping down tables, refilling ketchup bottles, learning the rhythm of the place. The regulars learned her name quickly. They asked about Hope. They left extra tips. One elderly woman named Betty brought baby clothes every Tuesday, hand-knitted blankets, tiny sweaters, booties with ribbons. "My granddaughter outgrew these," Betty said the first time. "Thought you could use them." Ellie's eyes filled. "Thank you." "Don't thank me, honey. Just pay it forward someday." Danny watched Hope during Ellie's shifts. She set up a playpen in the living room, filled it with soft toys, and sang old folk songs while Hope giggled and reached for her fingers. Danny loved it. She'd never had children of her own. This felt like a second chance. Life found a rhythm, slow, steady, normal. Ellie woke at 5 a.m., fed Hope, kissed her forehead, and walked the 6 blocks to Cole's Corner. She poured coffee for construction workers, served pancakes to families, listened to stories from truckers who'd driven all night. She learned that most people were kind if you gave them a chance. She learned that work, honest, simple work, could heal parts of you that medicine couldn't reach. She saved every paycheck, every dollar. She kept it in an envelope under her mattress, hidden beneath the quilt Danny had given her. By the 3rd month, she had $800. By the 6th month, she had $2,000. She didn't spend it, she just saved, because for the first time in her life, she had something to save for. One evening in late spring, Marcus stopped by Danny's house. The sun was setting, casting golden light through the oak trees. Birds sang in the branches. Hope was asleep in her crib, and Ellie was folding laundry at the kitchen table. Marcus knocked on the door. When Ellie opened it, he was holding an envelope, thick, official-looking, with her name written on the front in neat handwriting. "I've got something for you," he said. Ellie wiped her hands on her jeans. "What is it?" "Open it." She did. Inside was a lease agreement. A small apartment on the east side, 2 bedrooms, kitchen, living room, bathroom with a tub. The address was 1247 Maple Street. The lease was for 1 year. First and last month's rent, paid in full. Ellie stared at the paper, unable to speak. "It's yours," Marcus said. "You and Hope. Move in whenever you're ready. I can't afford this. You will, in time. Until then, it's covered." Ellie looked up at him, tears streaming. "Why are you doing this? I don't understand. I've been trying to save. I've been working. I'm almost there. Why would you—" Marcus held up a hand, stopping her. "Because you've been working. Because you've been saving. Because you've been showing up every day, even when it's hard. That's why. But I didn't ask for this." "I know. That's the point." Ellie shook her head, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say. Say you'll take it. Say you'll keep working. Say you'll keep being the person you've become." Ellie covered her face with both hands, shoulders shaking. Marcus stepped inside, closed the door behind him, and sat down at the kitchen table. He waited. He didn't rush her. He just waited. After a minute, Ellie lowered her hands and looked at him. "Why are you really doing this?" Marcus leaned back in the chair, hands clasped. He was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. "I told you about Tommy, my friend from Afghanistan. What I didn't tell you is that when I got back, I was a mess. PTSD, nightmares, panic attacks. I couldn't hold a job. I couldn't sleep. I drank too much. I pushed everyone away. Tommy's family, his mom, his sister, they found me living in my truck 6 months after I got home. They didn't judge. They didn't lecture. They just helped. Tommy's mom gave me a room in her house. His sister got me into therapy. They paid for it. They didn't ask me to pay them back. They just said Tommy would have wanted this." Marcus paused, eyes distant. "I lived with them for a year. Got clean, got therapy, got my head straight. And when I tried to thank them, when I tried to give them money, Tommy's mom said something I'll never forget. She said, 'You don't pay us back. You pay it forward. You help someone else who needs it. That's how we keep Tommy alive.'" Ellie wiped her eyes. What happened to them? Tommy's mom passed away 3 years ago, cancer. His sister moved to Oregon. We still talk sometimes. But I made her a promise. I told her I'd help people the way she helped me. And I have. You're not the first. You won't be the last. Ellie looked down at the lease agreement, then back at Marcus. I don't know how to thank you. You already did. You kept showing up, you kept trying. You didn't give up. That's all I needed to see. Ellie stood, walked around the table and hugged him. Marcus stiffened for a moment. He wasn't used to being hugged, then wrapped his arms around her. They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, not saying anything. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, and the sky turned purple and orange. When they finally pulled apart, Ellie wiped her eyes and smiled. When can I move in? Whenever you're ready. Next week? Next week works. Ellie laughed, a real, genuine laugh. I have to tell Danny. She's going to cry. She already knows, Marcus said. She helped me find the place. Ellie's eyes widened. She did. Yeah. She's been looking for weeks. This one came up last Tuesday. We went to see it together. It's perfect for you and Hope. Ellie shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't deserve this. Marcus stood and put a hand on her shoulder. Stop saying that. You survived. You fought. You're raising a daughter. You're building a life. You deserve every bit of this. That night after Marcus left, Ellie sat on the porch with Hope in her arms, rocking gently. The air was cool. The stars were bright. Hope slept peacefully, her tiny hand curled around Ellie's finger. We're going to have our own place, baby, Ellie whispered. A real home, just you and me. And we're going to be okay. I promise. Hope stirred slightly, then settled back into sleep. Ellie closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, allowed herself to believe that everything really would be okay. 5 years later, Ellie became a social worker. It didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, deliberate climb. One step at a time, one semester at a time, one late-night study session at a time while Hope slept in the next room. She started with online classes at the community college, general education courses, English composition, psychology 101, math that made her head hurt. She worked full-time at Cole's Diner during the day and studied at night, often falling asleep at the kitchen table with textbooks open in front of her. Danny helped. She watched Hope whenever Ellie had exams or group projects. Marcus helped too. He paid for her textbooks, her tuition, her laptop when the old one died. He never made a big deal about it. He just showed up with what she needed and said, "Consider it an investment." Ellie got her associate degree in 2 years. Then she transferred to the state university, 40 minutes away. She kept working at the diner, kept saving money, kept showing up. Hope started kindergarten. She was smart, curious, full of questions. She asked why Mama was always studying. Ellie told her, "Because I want to help people the way people helped us." Hope seemed to understand. By the time Ellie finished her bachelor's degree in social work, Hope was 7. By the time she finished her master's, Hope was 9. It took 6 years total. 6 years of sacrifice, exhaustion, doubt, and determination. But she did it. She graduated with honors. Marcus, Danny, Rook, Cole, Doc, Karen, and 17 bikers showed up to the ceremony wearing suits and ties. They filled an entire row. When Ellie's name was called, they stood and cheered so loudly that the dean had to pause. Ellie walked across the stage, accepted her diploma, and looked out at the crowd. She found Marcus. He was standing, hands clasped, eyes red. She mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." He nodded. After graduation, Ellie took a job with the County Social Services Department. She specialized in helping homeless pregnant women like her, women who'd been forgotten, abandoned, written off. She knew their stories because she'd lived them. She knew their fears because she'd felt them. She knew what they needed because she'd needed it herself. But the job wasn't enough. The system was broken. The wait lists were too long. The funding was too thin. Women were falling through the cracks every day. So Ellie decided to build something new. She started a non-profit called Hope's Hand. The mission was simple: provide housing, medical care, and support to pregnant women with nowhere else to go. No judgment, no conditions, no bureaucracy, just help. She partnered with Marcus and the Iron Brotherhood. They donated funds, time, and resources. They renovated an old apartment building on the east side, 6 units, each with 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a living room. They added a common room with couches, books, and toys. They added a daycare center on the first floor, staffed by volunteers. They called it the Promise House. The first woman moved in on a cold October morning. Her name was Maria. She was 19, 6 months pregnant, fleeing an abusive relationship. She walked through the door with nothing but a backpack and a black eye. Ellie met her in the lobby, handed her a key, and said, "Welcome home," Maria cried. Over the next 5 years, the Promise House helped 47 women. Some stayed for weeks. Some stayed for months. All of them left stronger, safer, and ready to rebuild their lives. Some went back to school. Some found jobs. Some reconnected with family. Some, like Maria, became advocates themselves, speaking at fundraisers, mentoring new residents, paying it forward. Marcus never asked for recognition. His name wasn't on the building. He didn't give speeches. He just showed up, fixing leaky faucets, installing cribs, delivering groceries, sitting with women who needed someone to listen. The bikers did the same. They became uncles, brothers, protectors. They taught the women how to change a tire, balance a budget, stand up for themselves. Every time a new woman walked through the doors of the Promise House, Ellie told her the same thing. "You don't have to do this by yourself. We're here, and we're not leaving. Someone helped me once when I had nothing. A man named Marcus found me collapsed on a sidewalk, and he didn't walk away. He showed me that one person can change everything. Now I'm helping you. And someday, when you're ready, you'll help someone else. That's how this works. That's how we survive, together." On a cold November evening, 6 years after Hope was born, Ellie stood outside the Promise House, watching snow fall softly over the city. The streetlights glowed orange. The windows of the building were warm and bright. Inside, 17 women and their children were eating dinner together, laughing, talking, safe. Hope, now 11 years old, stood beside her mother, holding her hand. She was tall for her age, with long brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Mama," Hope asked, "why do you help so many people?" Ellie knelt down, looking into her daughter's eyes. "Because a man named Marcus showed me that one person can change everything. And I want you to grow up knowing that too." "Is that why you named me Hope?" "Yes, baby. You were my hope when I had nothing else. And now we're giving hope to others." Hope smiled. "Can I help too?" "You already do. Every day." Inside, Marcus stood in the corner of the common room, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold. A little girl, maybe 3 years old, was showing him a drawing she'd made. It was a house with a big sun and stick figures holding hands. "That's us," the girl said proudly. Marcus smiled. "It's beautiful. You can keep it." "Thank you." The girl ran off to show her mother. Marcus folded the drawing carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket. Then he looked up and saw Ellie watching him through the window. She was smiling, tears in her eyes. She placed a hand over her heart. Marcus nodded. Outside, Hope tugged on Ellie's sleeve. "Mama, can we go inside? I'm cold." "Yes, baby. Let's go." They walked inside together, into the warmth, into the light, into the family they'd built from nothing. And somewhere, miles away, under a sky full of stars, the memory of Tommy Reeves rested easy, because the promise had been kept, not just for Ellie, not just for Hope, but for 47 women who'd been told they didn't matter, 47 women who'd been forgotten, 47 women who learned that sometimes all it takes is one person who refuses to walk away. Marcus sat down in a chair near the window, watching the snow fall. A woman named Claire, 8 months pregnant, recently arrived, sat down beside him. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything." Marcus looked at her. "You don't have to thank me. I do. You saved my life. No, Marcus said. You saved your own life. I just showed you the door. You walked through it. Claire smiled, wiping her eyes. Ellie told me about you, about how you found her, about how you started all this. This wasn't me, Marcus said. This was a lot of people who decided to show up. But you were the first. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. A long time ago, a friend of mine told me to keep living for both of us. I didn't understand what he meant for a long time, but now I do. We don't just live for ourselves. We live for the people we help. We live for the lives we change. That's how we honor the ones we've lost. Claire nodded, understanding. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Ellie sat in her office at the Promise House, writing in a journal. She did this every night, wrote down the day's events, the small victories, the moments that mattered. Tonight she wrote, "Hope asked me today why I help so many people. I told her it's because someone helped me, but the truth is deeper than that. I help because I remember what it felt like to be invisible, to be forgotten, to believe that no one cared if I lived or died. Marcus changed that. He saw me when I was invisible. He stayed when everyone else walked away. He showed me that one person can change everything, and now, every time I see a woman walk through these doors, scared, pregnant, alone, I see myself. And I get to be for them what Marcus was for me. That's the ripple, that's the promise. One person helps another, and another, and another, until the world is a little less broken." She closed the journal, turned off the light, and walked home through the snow. Hope was asleep when she arrived. Ellie kissed her forehead, whispered, "I love you," and crawled into bed. And for the first time in her life, Ellie fell asleep without fear. Because she wasn't alone anymore. None of them were. Thank you for watching this story. If it moved you, hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes, all it takes is one person who refuses to walk away. Be that person. Change someone's world. The ripple starts with you.